Has forced businesses worldwide to recalibrate. How are listed companies evolving during the pandemic? COVID-19 took many by surprise, and this morning we're focusing on the Johannesburg Stock Exchange. Who can invest, how and with what? We're joined now by Shameela Soobramoney, a Chief Sustainability Officer at the JSE. A very good morning to you. Possibly you can answer those questions for us. Before we get into sort of sustainable investing, what should people be doing at the moment? What are you saying? Shameela, can you hear me?
Jane, sorry, I couldn't hear your last bit, so I lost you.
All right. We were just talking about, the JSE and how it's standing at the moment under the pandemic, and what sort of movement are you seeing? What sort of factors are at play?
So the factors that are at play, are the same ones that we're really seeing globally, Jane, and, that would be the market indicators. I think you're well aware, you see those daily. And so we are subject to the global economy and what's happening. At least we started to see, some positive signs, some positive upshoots, I think, generally with companies, post-lockdown and the easing of restrictions, some very positive signs coming through. However, we're still balancing that, obviously, with the sustainability considerations around the issues that we're seeing on the social context within the country as well. And then, of course, that affects the debt levels within the country, the borrowing that we have. So a very interesting balance that we're faced with at the moment. And in some instances, a precipice, I would say. But I think just underscoring the case for sustainability, which is what we wanted to chat about today.
Okay, so how are listed companies evolving to create sustainable, climate resilient future?
Oh, so it's a very interesting area, and I think not just on climate resilience, but on sustainability in general. So certainly, I think there's a wide-scale acknowledgement that climate is the biggest challenge that we're now facing, and effectively saying it's the much bigger pandemic that's waiting for us, and of which we've seen some of the effects already. So companies are starting to understand that this is something that they need to take seriously. It's starting to be factored into their risk management. Risk management is an old practice, which companies have seen for decades, but understanding climate and climate risk is one of the key areas in which this is entering into the corporate debate and around boardroom tables. So we're starting to see the financial impact of the consequences of climate change. And then on the other side, of course, companies are starting to see, well, if we're seeing now that there's this imperative to change towards a lower carbon economy and hence start mitigating climate change and hopefully avoiding some of the worst impacts if we keep global warming down to a reasonable level, then there are huge opportunities that sit on the other side. So what we're seeing is this evolution of strategy that's integrating these considerations into the business model and saying, how do we start adjusting and adapting? And also, how do we start poising ourselves for an economy that has to turn that way, that has to become lower carbon in nature, and so the opportunity for better goods and services, for example. So those, I think, are the key areas we're seeing. So fundamentally, that concept that this is key to risk, this poses a threat potentially to business, but there are also huge opportunity, and those are multiple.
All right, Shameela, I wanted to ask you about what sort of impact a Donald Trump win could have, because at this rate he could possibly get there, but we've run out of time. Thank you very much for that.